Hey everybody, welcome back to the Shoe In Show. Thanks for joining us on this week's episode. On this episode, I'll be hosting along with Thomas Crockett on our team. Thomas, how's it going?
It's going all right. It's been a busy couple of days, weeks, months. It seems like months, but it's been, I guess, weeks. But we are
Maybe it feels like
nonstop
years.
at
It's been months. It could feel like years, and it's been a couple of days. But that's the environment we're living in now, so it is what it is. I think what's most interesting, though, with our industry is with all the challenges, there's a huge amount of opportunities that keep bubbling up if people are seeking them out to find them, right? And so as we keep talking about tariffs and things like that, there's still some opportunities for some domestic manufacturing in the U.S. where brands can go and dip their toe in and do some fun exploration. And we thought we would kind of bring that to the forefront for the industry. And today I'm excited to have Ryan Hunt join us. Ryan is not a stranger to Shoe In. Now, if you go back to shoeinshow.com to our catalog, you'll hear a very hyper Ryan live from the Material Show. I don't know how many years ago that was. Probably
at least 5-6 years ago, probably.
When he was helped co-found Bloom, one of our sustainability partners in the material space that goes out and cleans up algae and turns it into super sustainable materials for footwear midsoles and insoles, etc. And Ryan, I want to speak for Ryan because he's going to share in a second, but he's pivoted from that space into a whole new world. And for some reason, he decided to build a footwear factory in Mississippi. So Ryan, as we kind of kickstart this conversation, what are you doing in Mississippi, man?
Hey, Andy. Hey, Thomas. Thank you for having me. Yeah, some days I wake up and ask myself the same question. Footwear making is not easy, not for the faint of heart. That is for sure.
Yeah, no kidding. So tell me what, and I know you started this with a group of folks that you've worked with before in the past, and your wife's involved, which is always great, making a family footwear affair of doing this. But I guess we should start with, what does your facility look like in Mississippi? Like, what's your capacity? How many pairs can you do? Because I think it'll set the tone for what your capabilities are so people can kind of think about it. Because I think, and then we can get into some of the machines you guys are using to create efficiencies. Because I think when most people think of it, they think of a factory in Asia, a mile-long plant with a ton of people working on a product line, doing things. Like, what does your facility look like in Mississippi?
Yeah, well, thanks for that. And, definitely we had to do things a little bit differently in the U.S. So as a startup company, we had to start small. And so we started in our garage, our business partner's garage. And then we moved to a house. And now we're in a 1930s bakery. So the bakery is about 30,000 square feet. And we have been able to renovate the facility pretty much back to the bakery days. We do use a lot of food technology, which we'll talk about more here shortly, I hope. But we've got about 30 people on staff. We've got a vertically integrated supply chain where we can import raw materials, leather hides, a roll stock, foam sheets. We can do all of our own pattern making, cutting, sewing, strobling, slip lasting. We have a new innovative molding technology called 3D-TI. It's the only footwear system in the world, and it's the largest 3D-TI system in the world. And that allows us to produce foam and rubber components like outsoles, midsoles, insoles, footbeds. And then in the middle of our factory is the assembly line. So we take all those components, we can combine them together, and then produce a finished good through cement constructions, side stitching, and all the packaging and finishing aspects as well. As far as our capacity, it depends greatly on the type of product that we have and what the components are that we're working with. Our slowest thing that we're making now is our standard cup sole sneaker. This is a true, cut and sewn leather sneaker, very traditional construction, something that you'd find out of Italy or in Asia. And, there it takes a lot of hands to produce. So for that type of product, we're producing about 100 pairs per day. We can maybe get up to maybe 150 with the addition of some more people or some more equipment. And then for assembly of existing components, let's say we're getting lasted uppers in, or sorry, getting strobled uppers in that we just have to last and assemble, then we can probably double that number, 200 to 300 pairs per day at least, with our current staff and equipment. With the component side of the business, we're producing foamed insoles, midsoles, outsoles. We can produce those at a rate of between 100 to 400 pairs per hour. And we can run that as long of the day as we need to. Right now, we're just running the one shift. And so if we wanted to run more than, let's say, a few thousand pairs, we'd have to go into a second shift. But we have a lot of extra capacity in terms of our ability to produce components. When we were doing the research for this factory, one of the key things that we learned from some of the handful of other factory partners in the U.S. is that, getting the access to the components was one of the biggest challenges to be produced here in the U.S. So being able to make that here, it gives us a really big advantage.
What, with that in mind and maybe some other challenges, what would you say, like from where you're sitting, you've got the factory started in is it Meridian, Mississippi?
Meridian, Mississippi. Yes, sir. That's correct.
So what's your view on what we can do as an industry here in the U.S. and what we can't do? Like, where would you say that the challenges are just too great? We can't bring this type of manufacturing back.
Well, I can't speak for all the different footwear brands and footwear factories here because everyone kind of has a different niche. We've really focused our niche on looking at casual lifestyle shoes. We feel that the high performance athletic, whether it be basketball or, super critical P-backs or some of these more advanced running technologies, the factories in Asia and China specifically, I mean, they've been tuned for this. They've been working on it for a decade or more. And so for us, it's too risky. It's too competitive. It's too cutthroat for us to be able to compete in that area. So, we're really focused on brands and products where we can emphasize comfort, local manufacturing, made in USA, sustainability, but then also a level of innovation, being able to bring in new technologies and new materials. Even just today, I just left a meeting. We've got some really interesting new materials that are produced from biomass that can be a replacement for or an alternative to leathers or other substrates used in footwear. So for new material development, proof of concepts, and small batches, that's really where we currently have our focus. Over time, I hope we can expand that to offer higher volume product lines. More technical products. I don't know if we're ever going to get into the super high performance, basketball shoes or highly synthetic derived shoes, but really kind of focusing on these comfort oriented lifestyle brands.
What about the food products? You said you incorporated some of that into the shoes.
Yeah, well, this was where it gets interesting because, going to China a lot in Asia with footwear factories during my Bloom days where we were working to commercialize new materials into the footwear supply chain, we had an opportunity to visit many shoe factories, both the T3s, the T2s, the T1s, and get a really good feel of what that looks like in practice at scale. And it's a lot. It's a lot of people. It's a lot of labor. And so if we were going to try to reshore any of this production, we have to be very careful what we want to do and how we do it. And doing things with automation is a critical thing. That's not necessarily novel. Adidas and others have tried to build automated shoe factories in the U.S. Some of those have had some success and some of those have not. And so when we're looking at how we were going to do it, we worked with a team out of Amsterdam on this technology called 3D TI, which leverages essentially food science for footwear. And so the basis of the machinery is on a high-speed food packaging machine. And we use 3D printed tooling to thermoform our own molds for the products. And that can be as simple as a footbed for a shoe, or it could be, a thicker part like a midsole, or it could be something solid like an outsole. But it allows us an easy way to produce a low-cost mold and a low-cost part that's made out of natural materials. That part is typically made from a plant-based rubber. We can foam it at various degrees. We can batch it to very small batch size up to continuous flow. So, we can run 100 to 400 pairs per hour, or we can run, much, much lower than that if we need to. And then at the end of our production line, the product that comes off is a material that is a process that goes into like baking racks. So we use large, high intensity baking racks that can hold, dozens and dozens and dozens of pairs of the components. And then those go into industrial food dehydrators where we dehydrate the parts, cure the parts, and then the parts go into a large vegetable washing machine where we rinse the parts off and then dry them for use in assembly. So after they get produced, it's very much like baking bread or cookies. Again, they're mostly natural parts, over 90% bio-based. They're made on food processing equipment. They're produced in a way that looks like something that would happen in a bakery. And then at the end, they go into our assembly line as if they were conventional shoe parts.
What does the lunch break look like at your facility?
We're trying to separate the sandwiches
have a cafeteria?
From the shoe soles. Yeah, we don't have people eating our shoe soles for sure.
How are the performance of these products when you're going through this process? Like, obviously people will hear that and say that's really innovative, but does it perform as well as the traditional kind of molding? And
that's where it's been really surprising. I mean, there are some limitations, sure. And the limitations, I would say, are more around the geometries and structures that you can create because you are limited by thermoforming. So if you're familiar with thermoforming, it is essentially a vacuum forming process. So having a product that have negative concavity or negative parts or holes through the shoe. So, very sophisticated midsoles are not really the right type of product. But if you're talking about relatively simple soles, slippers, sandals, casual sneakers, slip-ons, cut and buff style, EVA, blocker style products. I mean, something that's just a normal shoe sole, those work quite well. And where the real big benefit is on the performance, because we are foaming a high performance pre-vulcanized natural latex rubber, and we can get compression sets that compete or even outcompete in some cases polyurethane, some of the best polyurethanes that we've been able to test. So we definitely beat EVA for sure. And we can be up in with some of the best materials that we've been able to find on the market. Now they are a little bit heavier, so they're not going to be a supercritical P-Bax competitor at this point. But for casual comfort lifestyle shoes, those aren't typically the restrictions anyways.
Well, I mean, that's where the market is too, right? Like, it's comfort, it's casual, it's a lifestyle, it's where the market is, and people. I mean, it's interesting you say all that because, I mean, it goes back to where you started out of a garage, going up to a house, going to a factory, right? It's the same with the product type. I have no doubt as you continue to develop this and spend more time scaling, then you'll find other ways to build other product types, but you got to start with where you're at. And this gives you a huge advantage to do things really quickly. But also, I would imagine as brands come and like look and explore, I mean, it gives an option where designers can go down to Mississippi and work with you guys to prototype and try things that they could, deploy to Asia if they wanted to. But I mean, obviously, like, where the industry really is now are these kind of crossovers and influencers coming in to do like limited product runs. And sometimes it is like, product launches and all, for multiple years, but sometimes just a great marketing ploy for a footwear company to come in and having that added benefit of saying, oh, and by the way, it's made in America is something unique. I think that most people would not expect. And and Ryan and I've talked, it's competitive. Your price points are competitive. Or I should say surprising to people that what you guys are doing and the way you're doing it is affordable for a large segment. Because for years we've been saying for shoes made in America, if you look at like New Balance, it's 160, 200, et cetera. So there's like a market for that, right? Or they wouldn't be doing it, but it's smaller. But where you guys are at, I think, is a bigger market than people may imagine for affordability for consumers.
Yeah, I mean, I think being in Mississippi gives us some advantages. We do have a lower cost of living down here. Real estate's less, taxes are low cost. I mean, we're not trying to do this in Boston or Portland or LA, which, are some of the more expensive places to live and to operate in the country. So we take advantage of that. We're very centrally logistically located. Meridian is a rail town originally, and we have very good access to the interstates, to rail lines, and to port as well. So if we are going to work with a partner that is a bigger brand that wants to import products in, we can do that. We can just do assembly. We can do private label, or we can do custom developments. And I think that smaller MOQ, that ability to be able to call us during the same time zone, in some cases drive here. I mean, we're not that far away from big cities. We're only 4 hours from Atlanta, for instance. So we're welcoming to have brands come and visit us, share with us their product design. And I think for companies that are developing new innovations, this is where it gets really interesting. And this is where we kind of saw the benefit here, was that before this, we were a new technological innovation trying to commercialize something in Asia, in China specifically. And, we got worried that our technology was under risk of IP theft. And being able to work with factories that are in the U.S. that abide the same legal laws and same IP restrictions as they do, we can be a trustworthy partner that can provide value for these new innovations that maybe are too small or too new or too outside the box to be considered, by some of these big factories in Asia.
It's a really interesting discussion on domestic manufacturing right now too. And there's, maybe it gets simplified too much. Just bring it back here, make it here. We obviously know how complex it is. We import 2.3 billion pairs of shoes a year. That's a lot of shoes coming in. I think it's like 7 pairs of shoes for every man, woman, and child in America. And there's so much that goes into the discussion, right? Obviously, if you want to bring things back here, you need the workforce, and you need to invest in the capital and build the factories. But you also mentioned the component aspect to it, and that was a challenge for you, is trying to, and we've heard that from so many people that try to do domestic manufacturing, is just don't have the materials that you need here. There's so many things that go into making a shoe. A lot of those supply chains are in Asia. A lot of the raw materials are in Asia. Can you talk more about those challenges? How are you able to, are there any tips that you, for somebody that is looking to start manufacturing here, anything you can share on that, like how you were able to kind of overcome that challenge?
Well, I think the components are the biggest issue. And one of the challenges is that EVA, which is one of the most common types of polymers and components that's being used in the U.S., that infrastructure, when it grew, was growing it overseas. It really wasn't being done that much here. And so prior to COVID, we helped reshore a pretty big project that was using EVA, and we had to bring together compounders and molders that had never worked together, had never, in some cases, never made footwear products or never made footwear compounds. And that was a whole new learning experience to try to build components in the U.S. So there are, I think, now a couple that have kind of got into this market, but still, not enough, quite frankly. We need more. And if we want to see growth in footwear factories, we need access to components. I mean, New Balance has this issue as well. And so any of the brands that are trying to increase their capacity and increase the amount of American-made content, and decrease their potential risk to duties and tariffs, we've got to find a way to produce compounds and components here in the U.S. that are also aligned with the type of products that are being produced on the upper side and on the assembly side. So, for us, again, going back to what our core was let's find products that are comfortable, that are natural, and they're sustainable. That was key to our hearts and key to our mission, was that if we're going to build a new supply chain, we need to think about it as a fresh slate, as a clean sheet of paper. And how can we start from a position of creating and starting with materials and products that have the best environmental impact, the best LCA, the most recycled content, or the most natural content. And one of the key ways to improve those metrics, for starters, is just to make it here in the U.S. I mean, that's what we found, is that if we produce it here, we're cutting out so much shipping, We're cutting out the coal-powered power grid in China, where this is a lot of electricity generated from coal, whereas in the U.S. we tend to have a cleaner power grid with lower CO2 emissions per kilowatt hour. And so leveraging those benefits all together gave us a product that can be not only competitive from a environmental perspective, but also for certain types of brands. And again, maybe the big brands probably were not even that interesting outside of maybe just a curiosity. But being able to help smaller brands innovate, or medium-sized brands innovate and grow and produce products that can fit maybe a more niche market, or to test out markets like, does Made in USA, do people care? Is that something that's going to translate into sales? Is it going to translate to higher value? And if so, then we need to find capabilities in the country where we can produce more shoes and more components. And so we're positioning ourselves really as a component company that also can do assembly and make uppers. And we can import uppers and we can assemble shoes, but our assembly, we're 30,000 square feet. We're not 1 million square feet like these massive facilities in China. So we know that we can't keep up with the demand nationally. But what we can prove is a model where we can way outproduce the number of components on our technology than we can on the assembly. We are working on ways to automate the assembly process as well. That's coming in kind of the next version of our tech that we're working with our partners in Amsterdam, What the Future. And we're looking at ways to be able to deploy that in more places such that we can get more scale and help more brands with this effort.
Yeah, so you're basically expanding your bakery to other places around the country to bake more shoes, more components, right?
Bakeries were always dispersed. You never had one city that was like the baking capital of the world. You got bakeries in every town. The bakery that we're in serviced this whole area, and it was a large area, our city and surrounding areas. And eventually it expanded to become an even bigger bakery. So we're hoping to do the same thing. We have a small bakery now. We hope this will ultimately become like our pilot case facility, where if you want to come do design development, this is the kitchen to come play in. And when it's time to scale, we can move into or have separate facilities that are more designed for, mass production.
I'm excited to come down and have lunch there because I'm so hungry right now. But I think kind of to wrap this up, you were talking about like sustainable materials but the company is Shloop, correct? That's how you pronounce it? Shloop?
Yeah, it's called Shloop, the shoe loop.
Shloop. Yeah. Okay, so explain that. Is that one of the ideals of trying to see how you can reuse materials and plug those in as well?
Well, yeah, our core technology, 3D-TI, uses recyclable molds. It's one of our first loops that we built. So we actually use recycled PET as a mold, and then that mold then gets recycled after its use. So it's a low-cost startup, a low-cost tooling. So to try out a new design or try out a new model or try out a new component, it's very easy to do, and it's very low barrier to entry. And then we can recycle that material. We also, when we built the factory, we sourced Bloom EVA, which is a natural algae-infused EVA that also contains recycled EVA as well. So that is a loop in of itself. And then we also work with other types of upper materials that are rPET or natural materials or LWG certified leathers that are bio-based, and other new technologies that are coming online in the near future, where these materials are being grown in biotech situations where it's being fermented and engineered to produce a specific type of product. So one of our core missions of our company is around sustainability and building a platform that can be replicated, that allows the shoe brands to enable circularity. One of the big challenges that we saw early on with circularity is that the finished goods, the finished used end-of-life shoes, to recycle them is very challenging. You have to ultimately ship them back to Asia, which isn't so easy. It's expensive, and if you normally can't even get it imported because of restrictions on recycling waste and importing that into the country. And so what we're looking to do is co-locate the factory with the recycler, with the end consumer, all in the same country, or maybe even in the same region, or maybe even in the same city. And that can allow us to have more effective take-back programs where the shoes can be organized, sorted, separated, granulated, separated, and then those raw materials can be put back into used in footbeds, midsoles, outsoles, or other products outside of footwear.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we've talked for a while when we were focused on recycling and the facilities and the needs a hub is the only way it works, right? To take back our own materials, which, a consumer may consider waste, those materials are so very valuable. And ultimately, if you can figure out that system to create, it lowers the cost of production because you're getting those materials, at a lower cost than you would if it's virgin, where you're having to ship it in or make it yourself. It's sitting right there and you just got to reform it and mold it. And so I think that's great. You guys are you mentioned private label. So I'm sure brands can contact you and come explore and see what you might work with them on. Cause I imagine, to me, it doesn't, the scale right now doesn't matter. Cause I think what a lot of companies are looking for, Ryan, especially retailers, is a product innovation where they can roll it out and then know that they can every 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 10 weeks, maybe bring in something a little fresh to get people back in the store, right? Like that's really important. Just as much as having 1,000 pairs of shoes in the store of the same type, having 10 or 12 pairs that you can constantly rotate is equally important to getting people just to pay attention and see that there's something new constantly in these stores. And we have a problem with that as an industry because the way the economy is kind of teetering a little bit, people are going to start pulling back a little bit more on that innovation and going back to the styles they know will sell, which stagnates that look, right, a little bit in the retail store. So I think there's something there with that. And just the ability to restock faster, having someone local where you're like, all right, that shoe did great at this store. We proved it out. Like, let's expand it to 10 more stores. And oh, by the way, like we can restock it as fast as you need it, right? Like it's a couple of days and we can have it restocked instead of, oh, it sold out. We got to wait 6 weeks for it to come in from Asia. So there's these like we talk about costs as an industry and we focus so much on freight on board and all those costs. And obviously those are all important, but I think there's equally cost to inventory issues, restocking, innovation, branding that has an opportunity that people haven't really given full consideration and weight to. That I hope that folks, as you listen to this, just reach out to Ryan. I mean, he'll call you back. He's pretty quick. He's pretty quick on the phone to call back and like have a conversation and see, go down and visit, explore, like see what's going on. They're going to be at our footwear executive summit in April. We're going to have a conversation with their head of product development that will go a little bit deeper into the processes that they're using to help people think through what's possible for Made in America. Because I think there is a lot of just baggage that people have that, and it's so easy to say, well, we can't do that. And to Ryan's point, yeah, probably on like high-end, high-performance, highly constructed stuff, that may be true, but it's not necessarily true. And what is, true today doesn't mean it's going to be true tomorrow as science and innovation continues to chip away at some of these things. And my imagination is like Shloop is an example of, what might look like in 10 years for the industry popping up all over the place, just like Ryan said, where you go in and get a pair of shoes along with your loaf of bread at the same time. It's win-win for everybody. You can do it quite easily.
We call that our Fresh from the Bakery program, where we got new styles coming out daily.
Nice. What's the website that people can go to look at your current offerings? Because I know you said you can do private label. You also have your own product line too, right? That people can, if you're a retailer.
Our website, shloop.it. That's SHLOOP.IT. And that's our factory site. And you can get to our brand. Now, we created this brand really as just a way to train our people, to commission the equipment, to prove to the other shoe brands that we are, in fact, shoemakers now. We started with like a handful of shoemakers that we brought in. And we've trained a staff of 30 people now that can make footwear. So we are still relatively small. We're relatively young, but we are looking for strategic partnerships. Through this process, we've developed a line of sneakers, of sandals, of slippers on blacks. We demonstrate this and showcase these on our blackswanfootwear.com website, which is BLKSWN footwear.com. And that site, you can see what we're producing at the moment. and the type of constructions that we're focusing on. And we're open to, tweak the designs, add branding, add labels, do what we need to do to make it a brand's own, particularly around our 3D TI technology, where we can provide, custom structures, custom textures, branding, logoing, sidewalls, colors, everything we can modify and change in small batch size. So we do have the flexibility, unlike traditional compounding with EVA, where you're going to buy gaylords, thousands of kilos of materials of a specific type, of a specific expansion ratio with a specific set of properties. We have a new way of doing it that really gives us a lot more flexibility. We can change density, we can change color, we can change performance metrics on the fly. And that's something that I'm not aware of any other technology that can do that like we can do right now. So I think that level of innovation, we're looking for partners to help really take it to the next level, get it into the marketplace, tell the story to consumers around sustainability, around local production, around reshoring manufacturing to the USA, to provide not just a more sustainable future, but also helping national security. If there was, as these incidences and tariffs and stuff increase over time, this can limit the marketplace and the ability for brands and companies to source products effectively and cost effectively. So this is an area we want to help provide benefits to the industry, and we're looking forward to connecting with new customers.
Yeah, this has been a really, really great discussion, really interesting. I'm excited to learn more at our Footwear Executive Summit. You can find out about that event on our website as well. And this conversation, we'd love to have it again a couple years from now too, and see kind of where everything's headed, and get a sense. I know it's a constantly changing environment, but it's certainly the whole domestic manufacturing discussion. I mean, it's really, really interesting. And as you can see, a lot happening here in Mississippi.
Yeah. Well, Thomas knows Mississippi pretty well. I think his wife is from around the corner.
That's right. Laurel, Mississippi.
How far is that from Meridian?
Yeah.
What is it like? It's like about an hour and a half from there.
I think about an hour south of here.
Yeah.
Not bad. You never know, folks. It's a small shoe world. Folks, we appreciate you listening. The Shoe and Show is the Footwear and Shoes podcast. We focus on the business of footwear in particular, covering all types of things. The domestic manufacturing conversation continues. We're cooking some stuff in our own kitchen on looking at financial models of domestic manufacturing, component issues, et cetera. Hoping to put out some information on that later this year, perhaps even helping facilitate a meeting among investors, domestic manufacturers, and brands to see how we can help scale and improve that. So the work we're doing is not just on the policy front. I think we talk a lot about that, but we're all equally doing a lot on the nuts and bolts of the industry, on the supply chains, to help kind of see what's possible and help drive more investment in this space to see how we can expand it, because we believe in it. I mean, we always say we're like agnostic, right? We love all our children, all the shoe brands and all the companies, but equally, it doesn't matter where, we're happy to have it made in America. Like there's this whole idea where we're happy to have it made in America. We want to see it made in America. And I think there's a narrative around that where people increasingly in the industry want that as well. Especially some of the older folks who saw it made here in the 70s. And then it went away, and they're like, I'd really like one of our legacies to be bringing it back. So I think there's a dynamic desire to figure it out in our industry. And it's not just the tariffs, right? Yeah, the tariffs are part of that, but I do think there is something in our industry that is trying to de-risk the supply chain, not just in terms of cost, but having it closer to market, having more dynamism in the market, more innovation, better ways to do things than we've been doing it. So it's an exciting time. Ryan, appreciate you coming on and sharing what you guys are doing and kind of peeling back the curtain. And I hope people do contact you and take advantage.
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Thomas, for that. And yeah, I think we can definitely provide some benefits to brands And we're happy to work with anybody that wants to come make stuff here in America.
Awesome. All right, folks. Well, again, every Monday, new episode drops. Appreciate you listening. Shoeandshow.com is the full catalog. If you like this episode, just wait, because this year we're working really hard and putting a lot more effort into our podcast to bring on really interesting folks with really interesting perspectives, to try to help people think through business challenges, models, innovation that's taking place, also just culture, like how we deal with like return to work and how we deal with a changing consumer. All those things are super important that we're constantly thinking about, and hopefully bringing some dialogue and some ideas to the table to help folks. So again, appreciate you listening. Until next time, Shoe-In is out.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.